Like if you know that the majority of your business comes from networking groups or masterminds or business groups or your local board of trade or what have you, then rather than do one of those things, do two of those things. Rather than doing two, do four. If you know it comes from sponsoring live events and being a keynote speaker, don't do that once a month, do that once a week. It's not hard, right? Like once you know what's working, that's what you want to do. And then we can start to talk about advanced strategies if you want.
Welcome to the Agency Profit Podcast, a show dedicated to going deep space on agency operations, which is just as nerdy as it sounds. I'm your host, Marcel. I'm the CEO of Parakeeto, a firm that helps digital and creative agencies measure and improve their profitability. Join me as I interview some of the smartest thought leaders and agency owners in our space and go deep into operations, metrics, and all the other things you need to get right so you can spend less time worrying about operations and more time executing on your vision. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Agency Profit Podcast. I'm pleased today to be joined by a long-term agency owner, internet marketing expert, the founder of Sales Loop, as well as the core selling identity framework. He's a person that I met actually at an airport on my way to an event. We got connected, we created some content together, and now he's here on the show. So with all of that, Mark Dreger, thanks for making the time to join us today.
Marcel, thank you for having me. And yes, we met at Pearson Airport, of all places.
Toronto Pearson. Yeah. A place I've spent a lot of time the last 12 months. I know that airport inside and out, unfortunately. Well, we did meet and we got to chatting and figured out we each had podcasts and that actually it made a lot of sense for us to guest on each other's podcasts. And I learned when we spoke on your show about this framework that you've come up with for really aligning how a person is sort of psychologically wired, what comes naturally to them, and go to market. And immediately I was like, we got to talk about this on the show because it is such a challenge for so many people that run agencies that are creatives first, are subject matter experts first, but didn't get into business to go out and be salespeople or to be CEOs. So I thought that was really compelling. But before we get into all of that, your background, of course, very relevant. So briefly, if you could, in your own words, describe who you are and what you do, and then we can talk about how you got here.
Yeah. Well, thank you. So, if we go back far enough, I went to film school. So I was one of those guys in the late 90s, early 2000s when the film industry was having a huge boom. Of course, I grew up in the Toronto area. And so we have a massive film industry here. And I wanted to become an editor. I wanted to become a video editor. So I went to a private college. I went to film school. I graduated. And I realized that the world was not waiting for me like I had thought it would be. I graduated and I was like, here I am, ready to work, hardworking guy. I got a little bit of skill, a little bit of talent. Where are all these jobs? And they weren't there. And so it turns out you need to stand out and you need to have a skill set and you need to differentiate yourself, all the things that I didn't realize at the time. And so I worked in television a little bit. I worked at CTV. If you're Canadian, you know CTV. I worked in the news department. I was a teleprompter operator. I was the guy getting coffees. I became a camera operator, and I did all of this stuff. And one day I'm talking to a guy who's maybe in his 50s or 60s, and he's like, "This is the greatest job ever." And I'm like, I want more. How do I get more hours? And he said, "Give yourself 10 years. Give yourself 10 years, and you'll be established." And I'm what was I, 22? My wife and I had just gotten married. I was like, I am not waiting till I'm 32 to establish my career. That is not for me. And so I actually went out and eventually I ended up finding myself doing corporate video for an internet marketing franchise in 2005. So picture, if you can, if you're a little bit older, you might remember 2005. It was before social media. It was before Facebook. YouTube wasn't really a thing. They had, 3-minute videos up. And so I helped them produce marketing materials, franchise development, onboarding, education. I would fly to conferences. And in 2005, 2006, I worked for 2 years at the head office of this internet marketing franchise, where if I were to produce content, sales content, marketing content, education, for me to produce it, so shoot it, edit it, put it out there and try to in some way have any credibility to help franchisees understand what we're talking about, I kind of had to understand it first. And so it was, in the end, the greatest 2-year crash course in understanding how franchise systems work, understanding how dealer or network ecosystems work. I remember being at a conference where we first found out about AdWords, and someone stood up there and said, for 12 cents, you could get someone to come to your website page. We learned about segmentation. So, we are all agency people around this podcast. So we understand demographics, but understanding segmentations and buying motives, understanding split testing in 2006-07, split testing landing pages. And so when I started my firm, my agency, the video production company that would one day become SalesLoop in the end of 2006, I started by focusing on video production and communications with all of this stuff I had learned. Who is the audience? Who are we speaking to? What are their goals? What do they understand? Are they problem or solution aware or not? What are the next steps in the sales process or the onboarding process or whatever we're creating this for? And if we could not figure out how to get whatever it was we created to check every single box, I would tell my client that it didn't make sense to move forward with it, because I was terrified that they would hand us 10 or 20 or 30 or 100 grand. We'd hand them back something at the end of the day and they'd go, what the hell is this? Like, what is this? What did you just spend my money on? What did you just do? And I was so terrified of that I developed this like really long form questionnaire, these really detailed strategic conversations. I really needed to understand what we were doing and how to spend their money appropriately. And once you start any project from that position, from there, with enough time and enough repetition and enough, spotting commonalities or spotting the opportunities, from there you can start to systematize stuff. And that's eventually what we did over, 18, 19 years. We've produced a little over 2,000 projects for 300 companies plus in 29 different industries and verticals. We've worked on everything from large national commercial campaigns with airlines. We've worked with the NBA. We've worked with international insurance companies. We've produced content for our Canadian Pension Plan Investment Board. We've done all of this big stuff. And then we've also produced email sequences for pre-revenue startup founders who don't know who they're talking to or what they're trying to say, and everything in between there at this point.
And so in those 18 years and the many evolutions, which we talked about during our last chat of SalesLoop, you have recently come to formalize something that I think had been organically sort of occurring to you throughout that time, which is this idea of selling identities. So let's start here with like the problem that you recognize both for yourself, but also in a lot of your peers that were running these small businesses, a lot of your clients, related to, selling, and why that feels so hard, or why so many small business owners struggle to go out and do it consistently.
Yeah. I mean, let's take a step back. So I kind of feel, there may be more, but off the top of the dome, there are probably two typical ways people sell. They're either going to sell based on strategy, or they're going to sell based on tactics, right? And so if someone comes to you and they say, if you have an SEO firm and they come to you for SEO, then they already know what they want, what they're looking for, what they need. And so at the end of the day, all you have to do is just show them that you are the right firm for them, for their needs. You're competing against either them not moving forward, or you're competing against the other SEO agencies that they're assessing based on their criteria. And most people sell this way because selling tactics to people who know they need the tactics is a really great way. It's just a really great way to sell, as long as you can outcompete, create the package and outcompete people. But often this makes things far more competitive. You have to give a lot more away. You have to compete based on price. The person buying is in the decision seat. They may decide suddenly they don't want SEO, and then now you're gone. And so I don't mind that selling situation, but to me, I would rather have a little more control. And so on the strategy side of things are where people aren't sure if they need SEO or not. They're not sure if this is the right place to spend money. And if they were to spend the money, how would they spend it? And where would they get the most ROI from? And what should they do with it? And so I very quickly, kind of early on, realized, hey, I mean, there's certain situations where we can compete on the tactic, but I would much rather have my client place the budget with me and then me decide where to place the budget, which is the strategy approach, than have them place the budget with me if I happen to check every single box. And if I don't check every single box, they're taking the budget away and they're giving it to someone else. I don't like that. And so that means that we tend to approach our projects focused much more on business goals, business strategy, how to customize our packages or our services to fit those. If they don't, that's fine. They can go somewhere else. But in that situation, you kind of feel like you're often walking on a tightrope without a net, because in that business situation, they're coming to you and they're saying, in a world where we can do anything, what's the right thing for us to do? And in a world where you can do anything, what's the right thing for us to do? When they agree with you, and then they place budget with you, and then they place trust with you, and you are taking on that responsibility, you can command a much higher fee. But it also means you're taking on the responsibility of the outcome. And if it works, awesome. If it doesn't work, they are now coming to you and they're saying, Mark, you told me this was going to work. What the hell, man? Right? And you don't have any way to back out of like, well, so at the end of the day, the more you're willing to take on, the more responsibility, the more of the outcome you're willing to take on, the higher the fee you can command and the less competitive the situation is. And so getting back to your question, hey, how did we spot this opportunity? Well, for the last 10 plus years, people have been coming to me saying, what do you think we should do? And we have worked really hard to try and help people through the strategy. So through the brand strategy, the marketing strategy, the sales strategy, and connecting those things, building out the pipelines. It means that we are much stronger strategists, but frankly, you can't be an expert at every single possible tactic that's out there these days. And so in that situation, people were coming to me and I was going, well, Mr. Client, Mrs. Client, you just went through a rebrand. The rebrand meant we had a new website. When we launched our new website, we had a 3-month hit in SEO traffic. I recommend we launch an ad campaign to boost traffic with paid during that lull so you don't see a slowdown in leads. And while we're at it, if we can prove that there's an ROI through call tracking, through attribution models, through all this stuff, why don't we just keep the paid campaign going in the long run, because we're generating leads and we're generating a positive ROI for you. So we would use the rebrand as a reason to rebuild the website. We would use the dip in traffic as a reason to launch a campaign. We would use the positive ROI on that campaign to keep the campaign going into a long-term service to keep the client sticky to us. But then the client would go like, yeah, the rebrand. Yeah, the new website. Oh, you tanked my SEO. Yeah, the ad campaign is seeing a positive return on investment, but man, it drives me crazy to give money to Google. And I go like, what do you mean? Like, we're looking at the report. We're generating revenue for you. And they go, yeah, but do we have to give money to Google? And these types of conversations where it led me to question, why do some clients reject strategies that we believe will work for them? And why do they get very excited about strategies that we know will not work for them? Like what is going on here? What emotionally is happening where, and I can go story after story after story. I can illustrate this a million different times, but at its core, I realized that just because we believe something would work, just because we could prove to them something would work, doesn't mean the client is comfortable moving ahead with it. And that is what I wanted to get to the bottom of. And that's what led to the core selling identity.
Mm. So this starts to unpack this insight of, this psychological side of who are these people? How are they wired? What is intuitive to them when it comes to going to market and driving demand? And it started to lead to this insight of these archetypes that you've boiled down to. So let's walk through that. What was sort of the insight? How did you go about arriving at this framework for the core selling identity?
Well, it's 2025. And I am only now starting to talk about it publicly, and we have been working on it since 2018. So 2018 was when I was driving home from a meeting, and I'm just like, I do not understand what is going on here and why people are reacting this way. And so the truth is, very slowly over time, through making mistakes and making people uncomfortable and seeing when things work and don't work, very slowly. And then 3 years ago, we started giving workshops on it. And then we built out an assessment. And I don't know about you, but at every step, I was worried that there would be a hole in my logic. And someone would go like, yeah, but what about this? And then everything would fall down. So I'm only talking about it now and starting to push this out, and we're starting to get really excited about it because frankly, we spent like 8 years working on it behind the scenes, and I kept waiting for someone for this somehow the house of cards to crumble. And so if you're comfortable, I can kind of walk through the 3 different profiles, but to answer your question, it was about just time after time after time, research and pattern recognition. And, you listen to Alex Hermosi and he says one thing and you're like, oh, awesome. And then you take that to clients again and they don't want to go forward with it. Or we've worked with so many different types of clients in so many different industries across the spectrum of, again, solopreneurs or consultants or personal brands, right up to extremely large international multi-billion-dollar companies. And we have found where this holds true.
So yeah, let's talk about it. You've basically boiled this down to a couple of archetypes, and then based on those archetypes, figured out like these are essentially go-to-market strategies that align well with that kind of archetype. So let's talk through that. What are sort of the archetypes that you've recognized? Let's start there.
Yeah, for sure. So there are 3 main core selling identities, and this is how you approach naturally. So when I say you, it might be you as the business owner. It might be you as the head of marketing. It might be you as a staff member. And so we're going to interchange you with either the leader or the company itself, because depending on the size of your company, that can kind of expand. But there are 3 main approaches. So the first I'm going to start with is what we call the tribe leader. Now, back in 2009 or 10, I think I was at a business owners event, and someone gave a presentation on how they built their entire company off of Facebook groups. And they said, we didn't spend a single dollar on ads. We don't have a CRM. We don't have marketing. We don't do emails. All we do is have this Facebook group. Well, this company was a mountain bike touring company that would allow people who were really into biking to fly to like anywhere in the world. You fly to Brazil. You land, you stay at a 5-star resort, and for the next 10 days, they do everything for you. They rent the bikes, they do all the maintenance, they drive you everywhere, they feed you, they give you wine. So it's this like really high-end experiential touring company tied to people who are really into mountain bikes. And so as he said this story, I went, well, but I mean, you have like, you're tapping into people's hobbies. You have a really cool offer. You have no way to compare price point, and you're going after wealthy people. Of course, you don't need advertising or marketing. I mean, word of mouth is all you really require. And so the tribe leader, we've seen this time and again, no matter how large or small your company is, but the tribe leader they approach things in terms of activities as opposed to campaigns. They're not really comfortable spending money on marketing or advertising. They focus on networking. They focus on referrals. They focus on repeat business, affiliates. And so think of the type of business. And these are companies that we work best with. In fact, like all of our systems and strategies are built for tribe leaders. But tribe leaders are people who are very relationship driven. They're getting the referrals, they're building the network. That is how they get business. But this also means then when leads come to you, they're semi-pre-sold, they're warm to warmish, they already kind of trust you. And it also means that when you bring these people into your world as a lead, you don't need a formal structure, you don't need formal sales processes, you don't need a CRM, you don't need a formal pitch, because every client that comes to you, you tailor your approach based on whatever they need. And so being a tribe leader is a really great way to run a business because it's a low cost of acquisition. You can help a lot of different people in a lot of different industries and situations because you tailor your approach to each of them. But the downside, you can't scale this. It's fairly organic. So let's move. You can't scale the lead gen. You can't create predictable leads. You don't have any productized services. You don't have any measurements or KPIs because every client and project is slightly different. You have no formal sales process, so it's really hard to scale up a sales team. And because you have no concept of running campaigns, like you don't measure cost of acquisition, you don't measure lifetime value of client, you don't have any of those numbers. Every time someone comes to you and says, hey, let's spend 50 grand a month on marketing, they go like, what are you talking about? Or they pay the 50 grand a month in marketing, do it for 3 months, don't get any results, and then fire them and say that the marketing agency was a scam artist. This is the tribe leader. And I can go on and on and on about this profile, but this is the tribe leader. A lot of great things, but also some challenges in your business. The second is what we call the farmer. Now, the farmer is a marketing-driven organization. Anyone who is really, really good at building marketing, they have at least 4 things in their company. They have the ability to come up with new ideas, new hooks, or new offers fairly quickly. They have the ability to produce the content they need, the ads, the landing pages, the white papers, the funnels, the sequences, the emails. They can produce content quickly. They understand media placement. They understand where to play, how to target audiences, how to create retargeting lists, the difference between Meta or Google, how they should structure their campaigns. So they have the media ability. And then finally, they're able to track and build attribution models. So that way they can understand how to split test things and how to move things. Now, the farmer, again, really, really great approach because they understand marketing. But farmers tend to over-index on things they can measure and prove an ROI with. They're logical, they're linear, they love this type of thing, but throw them in a networking situation, they're not really going to be sure how to navigate that. Most of them don't want to have really complex formal sales processes. They kind of want people warmed up and pre-qualified. I've heard farmers complain that when the lead count goes up, the poor quality leads also go up. And they go, I only want to talk to the best of the best. So they almost want the sales and process to be kind of easy and simple. And they only want to work with a certain type of person with a certain problem, a certain situation, because in their mind, they can always go out and generate new traffic. They can always go and drum up new people. And that's true as long as your campaigns are still positive, the competition doesn't change or increase, you don't run out of an audience, you haven't burned through an audience list and you've lost all your targeting. There's some pros and cons to being a farmer. But that farmer is really comfortable at going out there, targeting audiences, bringing them into your ecosystem, and then using automation systems, advertising, marketing until you can generate that lead. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Now, I'd imagine that the other downside with that is you're buying your traffic. So there is a little bit more risk. The customer acquisition cost is, potentially going to fluctuate. You have some algorithm change, you have a massive change in competition, whatever the case might be. Like, it is a more capital forward go to market.
I don't know about you, but I've heard people in my network go like, challenges aren't working anymore. That's a farmer, right? Like tribe leaders would never even think to launch a challenge. Right? A 3-day challenge, 5-day challenge, 6-week challenge. What should we be doing? Like, they don't think that way. They don't talk that way. Honestly, if you've ever said like, we don't spend any money on marketing, you're probably a tribe leader. If you've ever considered your lifetime value of client or cost of acquisition by platform or by channel, you're probably a farmer. Like, I've worked with enough people to go like, yep, that person's a farmer. And again, they both have really great pros, but they have some pretty strong cons when the systems aren't working for you. And the last thing I'll say is the biggest challenge people get into is when they try to take tactics from one and apply it to their business when they're not ready. A farmer or a tribe leader who just doesn't have any concept of productized services, packages, offers, case studies, proof points, a formal sales process, formal targeting. Like, imagine moving them then to a paid ad campaign that requires an investment of time and systems and teams and structure, and they don't really cross very well. So the third is what we call the hunter, and the third is someone who's focused on outbound sales. So if you are a company or a team where you have targeted lists, or you're generating leads so people can generate the lead, work the lead, close the lead. Your door knocking, your cold calling, you have talk tracks, you have you're using Gong to measure talk time versus non-talk time. You're tracking keywords based on your sales team. You have a sales floor, quote unquote. You have sales management. You don't think of a CRM. A tribe leader thinks of a CRM as something they put names into and then never look at. A farmer thinks of a CRM as a marketing automation system. A hunter thinks of a CRM in terms of traditional Salesforce pipeline management systems, right? Like these are very different teams and organizations and structures. And so the hunter, honestly, we've approached them with things where we're like, hey, because we're focused on branding and content marketing. Hunters, like, they get all excited about running a podcast. They get 6 months in and they're like, this isn't doing anything for my business. And we're like, no, but think of the goodwill you're building. And they're like, this is a waste of time. Like, we have suggested strategies to hunters where they go, I don't need to do that. I'm just going to pick up the phone and call the guy. And you're like, oh, okay. Now, but hunters are also really good at figuring out how to get from a cold call or cold outreach or a slightly cold, you don't know the person's intent when you're reaching out to them. You're interrupting them. You don't know their intent, but they're very good at somehow pushing through to just get the next meeting. And then from that meeting to the next meeting, and then from that meeting to scoping, and from scoping to building out a proof case or, building out an actual proper pitch, a business case, and so on. So I will say we are focused on the B2B market. If you're talking about e-commerce, I mean, there's no tribe leading e-commerce companies. Like that just doesn't exist, right? So our framework and our profiles do work for B2C. We've seen it time and again. But when we're talking about in the B2B space, I mean, these things, it's a bit ridiculous how true these holds. And I'll share one quick story. I have a client who purchased a $20 million company and he brought it into his group of companies. Over the course of the last 12 years, the business is now doing $3 million a year. It's always been kind of this ugly stepsister of the group of companies because it went from 20 to 3. And so we're constantly having strategies. And finally, in May, I sat down with him and I said, listen, what were you doing when you bought the company that had it at 20 million? Well, they did outbound. They had a sales team. And these guys just called and bugged and pitched. And the current owner is not doing any of that. So I said, well, I mean, if this worked before, should we just return to the strategy that worked? And his response was, I don't want people in my network or in the industry getting a call from my team, pissing them off, bugging them, interrupting them, driving them crazy, pestering them for a sale. I just don't want to be known for that. And that's because my client was a tribe leader. So this tribe leader buys a $20 million company that's a hunter outbound, isn't comfortable with anything related to that activity, and it goes from 20 to 3. It's just the reality of it.
Do you want some free resources to help you measure and improve your profitability? If you do, then I want to tell you about our agency profitability toolkit, which you can grab absolutely free in the show notes or by heading to parakeeto.com/toolkit. It's packed with training videos, cheat sheets, templates, and all kinds of other great resources to help you start measuring and improving the essential metrics that are going to drive better profitability in your business. And it's helped thousands of other agencies around the world do the same. So I want to encourage you to go and grab a copy of that. And if you'd rather get in the fast lane and just have our team of experts guide you through the process of measuring and improving your profitability, then I want to encourage you to apply for a consultation at parakeeto.com. And with that, I want to thank you again for tuning in. I hope you enjoy the episode, and I'll let you get back to it. So I think this starts to get to the wisdom of this idea, this framework of the core selling identity, which is, anecdotally, I've worked with tons of agencies. I've seen very successful high growth agencies doing all three of those go-to-markets. I've seen the tribe leader style doing a ton of revenue because them and then the partners that they bring into the company are just like really, really great at networking, and they keep leveling up their network, and that works. Like you can get really big on that model. I've seen the same thing with the folks that are really dialed into marketing. And of course, like we've all seen the companies that somehow just pound cold outbound and do really well with it. And like it can become very predictable over a long period of time. The thing that's true about all of the success cases in my experience is they're consistent. And they develop a process and they do it over long periods of time, and they make small iterations on that process that improve its efficiency. And those small 1% wins stack up over 10 years, and they build a machine. That I think is the key. And that's the insight, for me, at least in this, is like, I think what you've identified is the reason that somebody is going to be consistent on something is because they're actually willing to do it every single day. And by aligning to their personality type or the way that they think and feel about go to market, you increase the likelihood that they're going to be able to stick to the process and go on. So with that in mind, how do you, first of all, identify which of these archetypes is aligned to your way of going to market? And then how do you actually use that to make decisions on how to go to market in your business?
Well, those are great questions. So I will just say that as a business matures, it will move through and eventually have all three. So if you're if you're able to grow a privately held company to a 9-figure level, chances are leadership is still tribe leading. The marketing team is definitely farming and generating leads properly with proper KPIs. And you definitely have built up either an inbound or an outbound sales team that runs professionally. So at a certain point, it's not which one you are. You do have to be able to build the team to take you all the way there. Now, how do you identify yourself? Well, I've given a bunch of talks on this. I've shared this many, many times, even in like a 2 or 3 minute session. And I've not met someone yet who didn't immediately go, oh, okay, that's me. So again, if you're if you're thinking about your business and most of your business comes from another agency or from partners you're working with or from networking or word of mouth, or you're just the type of company where when people find you, you're willing to do whatever you need to do to help solve their problems. You don't really have formal outbound sales. You don't really have really aggressive marketing strategies. You're a tribe leader. If you measure cost of acquisition, lifetime value of client, if you know your KPIs month over month, if you know the intricacies of the different platforms you're advertising on, or you have a really advanced influencer strategy, or you have any kind of really advanced marketing strategy. I saw someone present to me an AI-driven, fully automated outbound email strategy. And as they broke down each step for like, okay, we use this bot to scrape Google. We then use this to data clean. We then use this system, to be able to go to LinkedIn and check if it's the right contact. We use an API to write emails. We like blah, 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 all this stuff. And I looked at their 43-step process. That's getting like a 70% open rate on cold outbound email. But that complexity of the system, first of all, no outbound sales guy or woman is like figuring that out and building it. And no tribe leader has the patience to figure that out. That's farming. You're a farmer. And then finally, again, if you're the type of person who comes from either a formal corporate sales background, or you have managed or worked on formal sales teams and you're very comfortable with sales, you're a hunter. And so that's first, and you will identify which one you are. Second, there are 4 steps you can take right now to immediately save yourself money or be comfortable ignoring what's not going to work for you. First, determine which one you are. Second, you want to make sure that you are aware of it and everyone on your team, your vendors, your stakeholders, everybody is aware of which one you are, because it will shift where you spend your money and your approach. Third, I want you to audit every single tactic, every single piece of software, every single activity you're spending money on. And I want you to consider whether it's within your approach or not. If you're tracking things and you're getting reports, I have to be honest with you. When we're having these conversations, everyone says they do everything, but we look under the hood of businesses, I'm sure, like you do. And when you look under the hood of businesses and you're dealing with very successful companies, but you say like, hey, I just need access to your GA. And they're like, oh, yeah, do we have? I think we have that. Who has that? Do you guys have a report? No, there's no reporting. There's no tracking. They have no idea what they're doing. Right. And so we would think that most people like us would be all over this stuff. But truthfully, the vast majority of businesses have no idea what's going on, where they're spending their money, if it even works or not. And most agencies are comfortable delivering crap because they know that the clients don't know what's happening. So what I would say is, for your own agency or for your clients or for the business that you have, look at where you're spending your money. And if you know that the vast majority of your business actually comes from your network, stop running Facebook ads to cold traffic, because the vast majority of your business comes from warm referrals with clear intent, and they already trust you. And now you're trying to figure out how to sell to cold traffic, low trust, zero intent people. And like, unless you're ready to make this bridge, unless you're ready to figure out how to do this, you're actually just going to burn through cash while it's not working. And I can give you other examples as well, but that's what you're going to do. And then the fourth thing you're going to do is you're going to stop spending money on this stuff. Like if you know that the majority of your business comes from networking groups or masterminds or business groups or your local board of trade or what have you, then rather than do one of those things, do two of those things. Rather than doing two, do four. If you know it comes from sponsoring live events and being a keynote speaker, don't do that once a month, do that once a week. Like, it's not hard, right? Like, once you know what's working, that's what you want to do. And then we can start to talk about advanced strategies if you want. But
yeah, okay. This really resonates. So my last question for you, Mark, as we sort of tail into the end of the show, because I know we're getting to time here, is which of these are you? I know, listening to this, like, I think I am a tribe leader that cosplays as a farmer from time to time. But like, candidly, I can't say that like, I wish that came more naturally to me than it does, because I'm a data guy and I like really want to be that way about marketing. But like, the thing that comes natural to me is like you and I chatting and going to an event and speaking, and that is how we've built our business. So I think I'm probably a tribe leader. How about yourself? What do you identify as within that framework?
So I have been a few of these things. I'm a tribe leader at heart. But the only times that I've really seen significant growth in my business is when I've been farming. And I am comfortable farming, but I've always under-resourced my team. So I talked about those four things you need, right? Coming up with constant hooks or ideas, being able to produce a lot of content at a great level, being able to do the media placement, tracking everything. I've always fully resourced my client work and under-resourced our internal marketing and sales teams. And so when I look back over, the 19 years now we've been doing this, the vast majority of years where we've done really cool work, 29 industries. How did we do 29 industries? It's because we're tribe leading, right? How did we get the chance to work with a national airline? It's because it was part of the American Marketing Association Toronto chapter, and a board member happened to be the CMO of Sunwing Airlines. Like, that's tribe leading. But building our portfolio, building predictable lead gen, building a predictable business, the times where we have farmed and everything is done really well and aligned. In 2009 through 11, we did a ton of PPC and SEO. We outranked Wikipedia for the term video production. So every time we had huge growth is when I actually farmed. But every time I was uncomfortable with, I'm not quite sure where the future's going or what's going on, I pull back on that and I tribe lead. And so that's me.
So this kind of brings me to the last thing I want to do, which is sort of like crop out. Because like, we spent this whole time talking about the framework, and I'm glad that we did, because I know I resonated with it when I heard it, and hopefully, a lot of people listening resonate with that as well, in terms of reconciling like their DNA as leaders, founders, or as a company, and how they're going to market. But I also want to just like take a moment to get a little bit meta and talk about, like, okay, you run an agency called Sales Loop. Here you are on a podcast talking about this framework. So as you think about your go-to-market into the future, presumably focused on also trying to build more of a farming motion around this, how does this framework play into your plan to go to market and share this with more people?
I mean, that's a great question. It's something, we kind of batted around earlier. The truth is that I talked about early on, you can sell tactics, very, very competitive, globalization, AI, everybody's nipping at our heels. Or you can sell strategy. Every professional services company, and an agency is a professional services company, requires a flagship asset. You have to have IP. So you have to develop your own a process, your own approach, your own framework, or your own technology, your own software. You have to figure out something that's going to differentiate you. You have to create that IP. And this is not stuff that I invented. I mean, my podcast is How to Sell More. We've had a ton of authors on, but Alan Dibb in particular is an Australian author and marketer who talks about this in his book, The One-Page Marketing Plan. He talks about this in Lean Marketing. It's just the value of having what he calls a flagship offer. And we know about checklists and downloads and white papers and assessments and all these things, but as many of those types of surface level things that I've developed in the past felt good as a marketing play, truthfully, the deeper that I go into the core selling identity and the fact that I have this framework that one I believe in, that definitely gets people's attention. It definitely stands out. It's a great talking point. We have the assessment that you can go online and take. And then once we took all of our products and once we took all of our services and productized them into these frameworks, where we can go, you know what, if you're a hunter, we've worked with a lot of hunting organizations, but we can only help you with basically one thing. Like, we can create better sales assets for you. Because I don't work with a lot of hunters. I don't really know that culture. I'm not a Wolf of Wall Street or Patrick Bet-David kind of guy. I'm not that dude. So we can create a great explainer video for you. We can create great case studies for you, but that's it. Whereas we know that when you come in, and so imagine yourself having a piece of IP or a framework or an asset that is 100% unique to you, that grabs your audience's attention, gives them a light bulb moment, and then becomes the lens in which they use to assess whether you can help them or not. And then every step of delivery is tied back to that. So if someone decides to come along and say, you need to invest in SEO, and I can go, well, let's just go look. You're a tribe leader. Should you be investing in SEO? Let's look at the list. I don't think you should. But what we should be investing in is retargeting strategies to retarget ads back to content, because this is proven to work. So it's I don't know how to explain it other than it's going to get your name out there. It's going to differentiate you. It's going to give you a competitive advantage. And then once you tie it into all of your products and services, once people believe in it, it's also a moat that you build around your services to protect your budget and your clients. So I don't know. We've spent a few years building it. It's worked for a lot of other people. It's working well for us. I'd recommend any listener who wants that, spend some time building it.
Yeah. Well, I think people will recognize, those that have sort of gone down the rabbit hole and checked out a lot of our stuff. Like, I think we very much believe in this idea as well, which is that, there's a bunch of sales that need to happen along the way when what you do is highly specialized. And the first one is the belief set, right? So it's kind of like, the way I've always talked about this is there's the problem, there's the point of view. I'm like, why does that problem even exist? Why do the existing solutions not work? What's it like a different way of solving this that's relevant in this new world? Then there's process, and then there's product, right? So like those first three P's are, how I've always looked at this is like, does somebody actually, like, when I talk about the problem, are they like, yeah, I have that? And when I talk about the point of view, are they like, yeah, that's true. Like that 100%, I can't find a good solution, and here's why. And when I talk about how we think about it, does it reframe it in their mind? And when I talk about the process, does it make sense to them? And, what you've talked about with taking this framework, moving it up into your funnel, it accomplishes all those things. And it has a huge impact on how we work with clients. It sounds like it has a huge impact on how you work with clients as well. And there's so many downstream impacts as it relates to operations, profitability, all of those kinds of things. So I second all of that. And
I will just add that the exercise of it in itself may be worth more to your agency than the actual output. And because what it requires you to do is it requires you to get really sharp in your thinking. It requires you to put it into, I gave a 10-minute talk at Genius Network, which is a business ownership group that I'm a part of. And I spent 6 weeks and worked with a coach to try and get my 90-minute workshop down to 10 minutes. And that was an incredibly uncomfortable and incredible amount of work. But from that, it made landing pages easier, made sales easier, made pitches easier, made downloads easier, made everything easier. And when I apply my framework then to all of our services, it forced me to productize our services. And then when I productized my services, it forced me to think through the different options we can do, our price point, our cadence, our time, profitability. Like it's almost a business system you can apply from top to bottom. And it forces you to articulate things in ways that you wouldn't if all you were doing was writing a white paper, or download, or launching a new offer.
Yeah, I second that. A good nugget of wisdom. With that, Mark, I know we're at time here. So for those that are listening that want to learn more about you, follow what you're doing, where should we send them in the show notes?
You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. My name is Mark Drager. If you want to send me a DM, or if you would like to know more information about the core selling identity, the best thing you can do, honestly, is just drop me an email. Let me know that you heard me on the podcast and what identity, what CSI you think you are, and I will go ahead and email you back a full multi-page guide that walks you through all of the thinking and all of the details on this.
Amazing. Are we going to can we put your email in the show notes?
Yeah.
All right. So Mark's email in the show notes, scroll down and you'll find it there. And with that, Mark, thank you for making the time to come on the show, man. I really enjoyed our chat.
Marcel, thank you.
Hey, thanks so much for tuning in to today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you've ever found yourself thinking, man, I get so much value from this podcast, I wish there was something I could do to return the favor. Well, today's your lucky day because you can leave us a review wherever you're listening to this, and it is incredibly helpful. Of course, if you haven't grabbed a free copy of the Agency Profit Toolkit, go and get that. It's got tons of free resources to help you improve your profitability. If you're looking to get in the fast lane and get help from experts to improve your profitability and measure your most important metrics, then apply for a consultation at Parakeeto.com. We'd love to chat with you and figure out how we can help. With all of that, thank you so much for being a listener, and we will see you on the next episode.